Hello and welcome to this particular class. We are going to handle multiplication and division of integers. So to start us off, I'm going to quickly throw in a few set of rules that you want to check on for you to successfully multiply and divide numbers, which apparently is very easy. So the only thing you want to check on is whether numbers are positive or negative. So the first thing, anytime you multiply a positive and a negative number, all right, anytime you multiply a positive and a positive number, anytime you multiply a positive and a positive number, you will always get a positive product. So like let's say we can speak of 2 times 2, okay? 2 times 2, those are two positive number. Or maybe if I have it as positive 2, okay, times positive 2, so that you understand that. So if I have it there, then you realize that 2 times 2 therefore will give me 4, all right, which is the same as positive 4, which is the same as positive 4. So anytime you have two positive numbers and you're multiplying them, you are always going to get a positive product. All right, then, all right, of course, we also expect that when you have two negative numbers, all right, so you have a negative number and you multiply it by a negative number, we expect that you're going to get a positive product. For example, if I was to take negative 3 and I was to multiply it by negative 3, I want you to note this is a negative number, this is a negative number. So anytime I multiply two negative numbers, I expect that I get a positive numbers, okay? A positive number. So that's going to give me positive 9, all right? That's going to give me positive 9. Or I can just write 9. Remember, when you're writing integers, it doesn't mean that you must include the positive sign if it's a positive number. Of course, if it's a negative number, it's a different case. Then you always have to indicate that. All right. So those are the first two rules I want you to observe when you're multiplying integers. Then, of course, another rule that I want you to observe when you're multiplying integers is that anytime you're multiplying a positive and a negative number, your answer will always be a negative product. For example, if I take right now positive 2, all right, and I multiply it with negative 3, all right, if I take positive 2 and I multiply it with negative, this is a positive number, this is a negative number, I expect that whatever number I'm going to get is supposed to be a negative number. So that is basically 2 times 3. But because this is positive, this is negative, this is going to be negative, all right, negative 6 right there. So it is a positive number multiplied by a negative number. And so you see the difference. All right. And finally, anytime I have a negative number and I multiply it by a positive number, of course, again, I'm going to get a negative product. Okay, so if I was again to take, let's say, negative 2 and I multiplied it by positive 3 around this time, this time around, okay, I still expect to get a negative number. Okay, so see, right here we had a number that is positive 2. Right here we're having negative 2, okay? Right here we had negative 3. Now here we're having positive 3. So long as the signs are not the same, always expect a negative number. That's the essence of these rules. That's the summary of all of it. So anyway, negative 2 times 3 right there is going to give us negative 6. And so that is it for these rules that we are always supposed to observe when we are multiplying. All right, so maybe I'm just going to do 2 examples to help you understand what I'm talking about, then it becomes easy for you to go ahead and understand. So the first example, maybe, which of course I've handled examples right here, but again, for just for the sake of learning, okay. All right, so I'm having the number 2 multiplying it by negative 3 right there. So 2 is a positive number, negative 3 is a negative number, all right? So it's a positive times a negative number. Those are different signs. Remember, the only time we get positive answers is when the signs are the same. The right here was positive, right here was negative. All of them are negative, all of them are positive. So right here we're having difference of sign of difference of the type of integer. So this here is a positive number, this is a negative number. We expect that that's going to give us a negative what? A negative product. Positive times negative gives us a negative. All right, so basically that's going to be negative 6 as our product right there. And finally, we are going to try and multiply negative 4 times negative 2. All right, negative 4 times negative 2, and see what we get. All right, so these are negative number times a negative number. All right, the signs are alike. All right, signs are alike. Negative times negative gives us positive. So it's basically going to be 4 times 2, which will give us positive 8. And that's going to be our answer right there. So that is those are the 4 rules that you're supposed to actually observe when multiplying, which are also the same rules you should actually observe when dividing, as I'm going to show you in the next 2 examples. All right, so when dividing, we still observe the same rules. All right, so the first rule, as we already said, we already mentioned earlier, is that when you are having positive number and you're dividing by a positive number, we expect a positive, in this particular quotient. And you're having a negative number divided by a negative number, we'll expect a positive quotient. All right, when you are having difference in terms of the numbers, of course, if let's say this is positive and you're dividing by a negative number, we expect a negative number. If it's a negative number and you're dividing by a positive number, we expect a negative quotient. All right, so why don't we see that in an example? Then it's easy for you to relate to. All right, so the first one, I'm going to do a couple of a number of examples so that you're able to understand what's going on. So we are having 6 divide by negative 3. 6 divide by negative 3. So this is a positive number right here. This is a negative number. So positive divided by negative, all right? We expect a negative. All right, so long as there is difference in the signs before, all right? So these are positive, these are negative, then we also expect a negative. All right, so this is going to be negative 2, the same as 6 divided by 3, except that we also have to be keen on whether it's going to be a positive or a negative number. That is for the quotient. So that's going to be negative 2 right there. And so for our second example, we are having negative 35, of course, and we are dividing it by 5. All right, negative 35, and we are dividing it by 5. So I want you to know this is a negative number, all right, and we are dividing it by a positive number, okay? So we expect, of course, a negative quotient. So that's going to be negative, or what? That's going to be negative 7 right there. That's going to be negative 7 right there. All right, so for our last example, let me have this as the last example. For our last example, let's say we are having negative 160 and we are dividing it by negative 8. All right, so what do we expect to get? It's a negative number divided by a negative number. All right, anytime we divide negative numbers, we expect that you get a positive quotient. All right, so that's going to give us positive 20, positive 20, as you can already see right there. So that is it for multiplication and division of integers. If you have any questions, any further questions, drop a comment right there in the comment section or comment box, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you, and have a wonderful and lovely day.